The Nordic coastal region is unique due to the variability in nature types and biodiversity. Its coastal areas support examples of many different habitats spanning the temperate to the Arctic zone. This diversity supports considerable biodiversity and the people depend on it for their livelihoods. Current ongoing pressures affecting marine mammals include climate change, fish stock depletion and contamination. Polar bears are subjected to several anthropogenic threats, climate warming and exposure to pollutants being two of these. The Nordic marine ecosystem. The Nordic marine ecosystem is comprised of some of the following seas: the Norwegian Sea, the North Sea, the Baltic Sea, the Barents Sea, and the Greenland Sea. Although these seas could be considered as a single mass of water, they can differ in factors such as water composition and temperature. The North and Baltic Sea, for example, are located in a more temperate zone, while we find seas such as the Barents in a more subarctic zone. While different marine mammals inhabit different seas, some of the same factors influence the ecosystem in which they live. These Nordic seas are home to a wide range of marine mammals. Examples of such are the harbour, the grey and the ringed seal, the harbour porpoise, and the polar bear. The seas of the north and their marine mammals face different problems, from marine litter to underwater noise. In the public concern, an increased focus on human-induced pressures such as pollution, littering, and climate change are becoming the focus. This also reflects what our group has found to be a major interest in the articles regarding threats and problems towards the marine mammal population. In this video we have chosen to take a closer look at the Baltic and Barents Sea and how pollution and climate change are affecting their marine mammal populations. The Baltic Sea is surrounded by 9 countries and is situated in a temperate climate zone and is one of the largest brackish water areas in the world. The Baltic Sea is relatively isolated from other seas and only has a narrow connection to the North Sea through the Sound and the Belt Seas. Hence, it takes approximately 30 years for the Baltic Sea waters to be fully exchanged. The sea is inhabited by both marine and freshwater species, and about 85 million people inhabit the drainage area. A mix of land-based human activities, including agricultural, industrial, and urban activities, exert a wide variety of pressures on the sea. The sea itself experiences busy shipping between its surrounding countries and is an important emerging resource for fishing, fish farming, gravel extraction, and wind energy, to name a few. It is also being used for leisure and tourism. The Baltic Sea, being one of the most heavily utilised marine areas in the world, is also under higher risk of contamination due to the fact that it is almost completely surrounded by land. The sources of marine pollution include industrial waste input directly into the sea or via rivers, and atmospheric input through traffic and agriculture. All marine mammals in the Baltic Sea are confronted with anthropogenic impact within their natural habitat, such as noise, chemical pollution, bycatch, and indirect reduction of available prey. Chemical pollution, in particular, has been shown to increase organisms' vulnerability to stresses such as bacterial and parasitic infections, thus leading to a decline in the abundance of individuals in a population. The bordering states of the Baltic Sea are populous and are exposed to heavy anthropogenic activities such as tourism and fishing, which increase the input of debris ending up into the sea. Marine debris, or litter, can lead to fatal entanglements, chronic infections arising from skin lesions, and suffocations resulting from plastic items stuck in the esophagus. Other pollution factors, such as organochlorine pollution, is another example of how pollution affects the marine mammals in this sea. In the Baltic, this environmental contaminant caused further decimation of the population of the ringed seal in the 1960s and 70s, by severely reducing their fertility.
Global warming is another factor influencing marine mammals. It is causing major perturbations in ecosystems with extensive seasonal sea ice. This especially has impact on pacophilic seal species, which use sea ice for haul-out and breeding. The ice and snow also gives protection against many predators and lower exposure to pathogens and parasites. Seals breeding on ice are therefore exceptionally vulnerable not only to changes in the extension, but also to changes in the distribution and condition of seasonal sea ice. An example of this is the Baltic ringed seal. The status of the ringed seal in the Baltic Sea is assessed as not good. This, at least in part, is caused by the impacted breeding of the ringed seal because of a restricted availability of suitable sea ice. The lack of suitable ice not only leads to impacted reproduction, but also lesser protection against predators. During warm winters, almost no pup survival was observed in the two southern Baltic ringed seal populations. Also, an increase in the overlap of feeding habitats of the females will occur as the density of seals on the ice increases. While Arctic and Antarctic seal species have the possibility to migrate to higher latitudes, landlocked and semi-landlocked seal species, such as the Baltic ringed seal, do not have this option. Though having focused on warmer winters on the Baltic ringed seals, along with mentioning the effects of pollution such as organochlorines, these are not the only well-documented threats to these landlocked seals. Other factors include infectious diseases such as porcine distemper, overfishing, and malnutrition. Thus, the effect of global warming comes on top of a number of factors already severely affecting the seal population. But this decreasing extent of ice could be a critical factor jeopardizing the future persistence of these seals populations.
The Baltic Sea is not the only example of Nordic seas facing problems with climate change and pollution. We will now move on to focus on these factors in the Barents Sea. The Barents Sea is a subarctic ecosystem. It connects with the Norwegian Sea to the west and the Arctic Ocean to the north. About 25 species of marine mammals regularly occur in the Barents Sea, including 7 pinnipeds, 12 large crustaceans, 5 small crustaceans, and the polar bear. Marine mammals, as top predators, are the keystone species and a highly significant component of the Barents Sea ecosystem. The Barents Sea is strongly influenced by human activity, historically involving the fishing and hunting of marine mammals. More recently, human activities also involve transportation of goods, oil and gas, tourism, and aquaculture. In the last years, interest has increased on the evaluation of the most likely response to the Barents Sea ecosystem to climate changes.
Climate change has been shown to affect polar bears' reproduction output, body condition, and survival rate negatively. The Barents Sea area is experiencing the fastest loss of sea ice recorded throughout the Arctic. The subpopulations of polar bears in the area are suspected to be particularly vulnerable to climate change due to the reduced access to sea ice habitat that affects foraging opportunities. As a result of climate warming and the associated loss of sea ice, distribution and abundance of marine species are expected to decrease in the Barents Sea. Some observations supporting this expectation have already been made. Additionally, climate change has an impact on pollution risks. It increases the pollution loads of the Barents Sea due to the increased precipitation, which in time increases the runoff from land and changes the atmospheric transport of contaminants. The observed trend with the steadily decreasing input of organic pollutants during the last decade may thus be broken, and the increased concentration of persistent organic pollutants may be the first sign of climate-induced change. The Barents Sea is considered a cleaner environment than many other European seas due to few local sources of pollution. However, for some types of pollutants, there are well-known reasons of concern. Pollution can mean many things. It can refer to elevated levels of oil components or hydrocarbons, radioactive substances, and environmental hazardous substances, but also noise, marine litter, and ocean acidification. The focus here will be on environmentally hazardous substances in the Barents Sea. The most hazardous substances that are found in the Barents Sea environment are persistent organic compounds such as polychlorinated biphenyls, alkylphenols, and heavy metals like mercury and cadmium. These POPs especially pose a threat to marine mammals and seabirds, and despite it being one of the cleanest oceans in the world, animals on top of the marine food web, such as polar bears, exhibit high concentrations of some hazardous substances, which are not readily biodegradable and are bioaccumulative in the Barents Sea. Atmospheric transport is the most rapid route for POPs. Other pathways include ocean currents, ice drift, and rivers that bring pollutants into the Arctic and the Barents Sea. It has proven difficult to prove cause-effect relationship for one specific stressor. There are, however, strong indications that contaminants have affected the polar bear population around Svalbard, and recent studies of biological effects of POPs have been able to confirm the causal link between POPs and observations of adverse effects in Arctic top predators. These controlled experiments show effects on endocrine, immune, and reproductive systems. So in this video, we find that although the seas in which we have focused differ in a multitude of ways, the problems faced by the marine mammals inhabiting them might be somewhat similar. This is not to say that these are the only two factors that influence these animals. The fact also still remains that these are problems in which we might not see the full extent of consequences yet. For example, in regards to changes brought along with climate change, but there is strong evidence that it will have an impact on the future well-being of these animals.
So, what is being done about the problems in question? Measures to improve the Baltic Sea environment are undertaken by many actors and at many levels, jointly at the regional level through HELCOM, by country at national, county and local levels, and by initiatives in the private sector. Different types of measures are taken, including technical improvements to minimize impact, economic and legislative measures, and measures directed towards raising awareness and incentives for changing in behavior. These actions include acts to reduce pollution hotspots, and designation of marine protected areas has been a key instrument for protection of biodiversity in the Baltic Sea for more than 30 years. Agreements and conventions in the Barents Sea are also in place and are of major importance in order to control and reduce the amount of pollution. These agreements include regulation of activities and restrictions of use and/or bans of hazardous substances. These are just some of the actions taking place with regards to some of the threats to the ecosystem and marine mammals of these seas. But are they enough?